You're listening to Glove Up or Shut Up on the Angry Marks Podcast Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the main event of the evening. All right, we're very happy that you decided to join us as we get tonight's Pony of Pain started.
And welcome everybody to another episode of Glove Up or Shut Up, right here on AngryMarks.com. My name is Peter H., the guy who sends his Christmas cards out on December 23rd, and I'm joined by my co-host from Omaha, Nebraska, Stevie J.
Greetings, although I'm not in Omaha this week, I'm enjoying the festive holiday season in the snowy confines of central Iowa.
Is that a far drive for you?
That's about 3 hours. It's not intolerable. I've done it on a quite regular basis to attend Iowa State sporting events.
I was going to say, is that close to Iowa State University?
Yeah, actually, I grew up about 20 miles away from Iowa State, so I was born to be a Cyclone. But, hey, we're not here to talk about my life. We're here to talk about MMA and sports.
Absolutely. We got a big show. We got UFC Fight Night 58 to talk about. We got lots of news, some Titan FC highlights as well. But the big news item, we have lots of news to get to as well. But the one story that came out just a couple of days ago that everyone's still talking about.
Oh, dear God, this poor fucker.
Dominic Cruz out again with a knee injury. But it's worse than you think. It was his good knee, not his right knee.
Yeah, so now he's looking at being sidelined for another 6 to 9 months. So there goes his title shot against TJ Dillashaw.
Yep. Before this, he had 2 ACL injuries to his left and a groin injury. Now it's his right knee that's giving him trouble. And, you know, it looked like Rafael Assunção was being groomed as a next contender. And within, 4 hours of this announcement, Stevie? It was announced he had a clean break of his ankle and he'll be out 4 to 6. It won't need surgery, so it was clean. They said it. It's fine, 4 to 6 weeks, and he can get back to training. So he won't be getting that title shot either.
Well, you know what this means. With a win at the UFC Fight Night, Renan Barão is now right back in the driver's seat.
Absolutely. You kind of feel bad for Assunção, but, you know, he's a fighter that he'll get his opportunity down the road.
Absolutely, and I think this actually... You don't want people to get injured, but it kind of works out for the best with Renan Barão getting the win and him being the former champion and previously missing his title shot due to missing weight. Now he's proved he can make weight again. Now he's proved he's got the Renan Barão of old back, that he can fight like he used to when he was the champion. Now I think we've established that it's time to do that fight and rematch him with Dillashaw.
Now, somebody asked me when this news broke, and I had to shoot this rumor down right away because it's a stupid thing to say. Do you think we'll see Dillashaw and Faber?
No, they've already said they really don't want to do that. They're trying to avoid doing that. I think they would much rather Dillashaw take the rematch with Barão than Faber face Dillashaw. Besides, I think Faber's probably looking at a rematch with Francisco Rivera if everything falls out the way it's supposed to.
It does. Now, the only point I would say, you know, I didn't really put them on blast or anything, but it's more like the argument that, you know, I'm tired of talking about, but it always sneaks its ugly head around the corner. Well, we're going to talk about this when it comes to Rampage Jackson, where the age-old situation of...
teammates fighting teammates, yes,
Bingo.
I know. It's the same thing we're going to say if we ever get into that situation where we get Rory McDonald as the champion and GSP comes back. Did they fight each other?
You know, that's a good question. And if, say, for example, it's a number one contenders fight.
Or that, too. I mean, either way, you could have the two of them facing off against each other, and I don't think they have any desire to do that either.
No,
but
I don't think so.
The counter argument to that argument is that these guys say they don't want to fight, but they fight each other in training all the time anyway.
Wouldn't Diaz fight Melendez?
I believe so. I think if the money was there, they would.
It's funny, the one camp who you would think would never fight would fight, and everyone else is like, I don't want to fight my teammate.
Loyalty is a funny thing in mixed martial arts. That's why on every season of Ultimate Fighter, Dana White cuts the promo, usually filled with profanity-laced tirades, that it's not a blankety-blank team sport. It's not teams. You don't become a champion as a team. One individual wins a world title, not a team.
Yeah, welcome to Ultimate Fighter, Team USA and Team UK.
Well, it's a team right up until the point somebody has to win.
Yeah, once that door closes, there are no teams. Once that door opens, you're back on your squads.
Exactly, yeah. It's a team sport up until the moment you're fighting, and then you're all on your own.
Is Cruz done?
6 to 9 months sounds to me like he's not done, but the way this guy keeps getting one thing after another, you gotta wonder if he feels like it's worth it anymore.
Well,
It's not that he can't keep rehabbing and keep coming back, but if it keeps happening to you, there's gotta be a point where you say, is it worth it? It's like when Chuck Liddell was getting knocked out over and over again. He kept coming back, and he kept seeming fine when he'd come back, but you had to ask yourself, is it worth it? And at some point, Dana White just said, it's not worth it, you're not coming back anymore.
just to think, Dominic Cruz has been around for years. However, he only has 21 fights on his record, 20-1 in mixed martial arts, 3-0 in the UFC.
You know, it's kind of interesting we're talking about this right now. It's an unfortunate coincidence, but before this injury happened, I interviewed Scott Jorgensen last week, and we talked about his fight with Dominic Cruz, and he was talking about, man, if I got a second chance to go in there with him again, I'd know to be patient. I wouldn't go charging after him. I wouldn't try to knock him out with one big shot. I'd wait, and I'd seize my opportunity when it came. Well, I'm sorry, Scott. That opportunity ain't coming for a long time now.
The one thing, before we move on to UFC Fight Night 58, is on Twitter when Dominic Cruz announced this, the last line was, I, along with my camp, respectfully request privacy at this difficult time. Thank you. Do you think that will lead to a retirement announcement in the next 3 to 6 months?
No, I just think this poor guy has had his knee injuries so many times now that what is there for him to say that he hasn't said every other time he's been injured? I mean, it's just more like, I'm sorry, I can't keep answering this question over and over. This is traumatic enough as it is. Just leave me alone for a while. Besides, it's the holidays. I want to be alone. I want to be with my family. I don't want to deal with the press. I respect that. I have no problem with it.
And he's good in the studio, so I mean, there is that.
Yeah, you know what? If it turns out that rehabbing his multiple injuries and training hard enough that he gets injured is no longer worth it for him, then fine, let him go be an analyst for Fox Sports. It's a nice job for him.
Probably a good payday, too.
Yeah, just ask Chael Sonnen. No, whoops. No, he can't. He got fired.
Zing! Alright, well, let's talk about UFC Fight Night 58 that happened in Brazil this past weekend, and
one heck of a main card to go out with UFC for the year 2014. They finished on top.
yeah, well, I mean, I caught the better half of the prelims, and I was working on other projects at the same time, so I was doing a little bit of multitasking, but I did see the TKO at the main event of the prelims with De Lima and Prodrak, so let's just start with that one.
Prodrak is done. That's got to be his swan song.
You think so?
After that loss, yeah. Why would you bring him back after that?
Well, with 45 cards next year, they might be hurting for fighters.
You can say that, but at the same time, you've got to have fighters that can believably go in there and compete, and I don't think we can make the argument anymore that he's competitive at an elite level, because how many losses is this now for him out of his last 6, 7, 8 fights? I mean, it's not been a good streak for him for a while now. He lost to Feijiao, he lost to Jimmo, he lost to Vinny Magalhaes. He's been on a skid for a while now.
No, he has, and the only thing with the international fighters, you almost give them a little bit more slack when it comes to straight losses, but he has lost, if you count the Joey Beltran fight, he's 0-4-1 in his last 5.
Yeah, that's not really much. I know 45 cards, but that's not much reason to keep him around. I don't see a good excuse for it at this point. I like the guy. He'll be competitive if he goes to Bellator or World Series. He'll be good wherever he lands. It's just, at some point, you have to make a decision. Is this guy going to compete? And at the UFC level right now, he's not competing.
The only reason that I mentioned the Joey Beltran fight was a no contest Because Beltran got popped for banned substances in the post-fight piss test.
Right. So, anyway, if that's the only prelim you want to talk about, let's move on to the main card.
Let's do that. Daniel Serafine against Antonio Dos Santos Jr. No, he's not related to JDS. We established this last week.
And this was an awesome fight right up until the moment it went to shit.
Yeah. Serafine wins TKO injury, second round 101. Dude's finger.
Yeah, this is what happened for those who didn't see it. He dislocated his finger throwing a punch. He threw up a hand like, stop, wait a minute, let me pop this sucker back in. And he tries to put his finger back into his socket. And the referee's like, you can't stop the fight. The fight's over. He's like, no. See, I got it back in. I want to keep fighting. The referee's like, no, screw you, buddy. You can't stop the fight to fix something. If you stop the fight's over. And it was.
Well, the funny thing from my end was, alright, he's trying to pop the finger back in, and the referee's calling off the fight. But the referee's just waving his arms back and forth like he's an air traffic controller. And the announcers are like, I don't know what's happening here. Is the fight over? Is he calling over a doctor? And then there's like silence, awkward silence, like 3 seconds. I think the Crickets made an appearance on this broadcast. Meanwhile, the referee is still doing the air traffic controller saying the fight's over, and then the announcer's like, okay, it's over. I'm like, yeah, think? Like, I feel bad for Dos Santos here. I mean, it's not a way you want to lose a fight, but the announcers did make a very key point here. If that happened that easily, it's happened before many times in training. Which is true. I mean, if the way he put his hand up to give me a sec, I'll pop my finger back in place, like, the way he did it nonchalantly, it's like, this has happened before to this guy. What do you think? Do you rematch these guys, or was this a throwaway fight?
I don't think it matters enough for them to do it again. I mean, these guys probably don't even want to. They're actually friends and training partners. The theme here is surfacing for the show, but, this is not a fight either of these guys would want to end this way, but I don't think they'll be eager to do it again either.
I'm sure Dos Santos at the end of the day just wanted to give the referee the finger.
Ha ha ha.
Alright, what about Eric Silva and Mike Rhodes?
Well, Biggie Rhodes got big timed in a hurry. It did not go his way because he got caught in an arm triangle choke and went to sleep. He didn't even get a chance to tap.
No, he was out cold. In the record books, it will be marked down as a technical submission via arm triangle choke 75 seconds into the first round.
This is what they say about Eric Silva, and it really held true after this fight. He either wins fast or he loses big, and in this case, he won fast.
And I thought, okay, he's kind of still there, and then he just slumped over. Like, oh, no, he's out.
Yeah, Eric Silva had that thing in deep, so props to him, and that wasn't the first time we saw a really nice arm triangle choke on this show.
Yeah, we'll get there. Magomedov against Silvero.
Yeah, wow. 3 seconds left to go. Magomedov turned it up and went for the kill with 3 seconds left to go in the third round.
But let me ask you this. Was he winning this fight on your scorecard?
Yeah, I had him ahead.
So it was a moot point saying...
No, he probably didn't want to take the chance because you always say it yourself, never leave it to the judges. So I'm with him going for the kill here, even with late time left, because you know what? You go to those scorecards and there might be a little bit of favoritism for the hometown guy. There might not. You never know. Nope. It was good that he didn't take that chance.
No, if there was an award for never leaving it to the judges, you could either go two ways to that spectrum. One, winning the fight in 6-8 seconds, whatever, or winning it with like 3 seconds left on the clock.
Absolutely. So props to Magomedov. He made a case for me for being one of the elite lightweights with this fight because he was looking good throughout the fight and then he turned it up in the third round. Instead of slowing down, he picked up the pace, and that's what you want to see from an elite lightweight.
Patrick Cummings defeating Antonio Carlos Jr. rather decisively.
Boring.
Yeah, boring. 30-27 across the board.
One of the pranksters on Wikipedia said, he wins unanimous decision by dry humping. That quickly got reverted, but I saw it before it got changed.
He wins via Ben Askren.
That would be another edit if you were going to be a prankster, but these guys on Wikipedia think they're funnier than they actually are.
Yeah. Let's go to Henan Barrow and Mitch Gagnon for semi-main event.
I could swear it's Gagnon, not Gagnon.
Well, I'm probably butchering the French language there, but...
Yeah, you speak French, so why am I correcting you?
Well, je parle français, mais je parle français un petit peu.
See.
I can flip it on like a switch.
Yeah. So anyway, we talked about arm triangle chokes, and this was a pretty darn sweet one. It was a good fight all the way up to this point, and then you're thinking, well, Henan Barrow's probably winning, but what's he going to do here if he wants to get another title shot? And then all of a sudden, oh, he's got Gagnon hurt. Oh, he's got the arm in there. Oh, snap, it's over.
I was like, hold on, damn it.
Gagnon could not last for another minute and 7 seconds. Maybe for like 7 seconds, but not for a whole freaking minute and change.
Now, we talked last week about which Barrow was going to show up, Jekyll or Hyde here, and for me, now, I don't want to come across like, the Canadian loving all Canadian fighters, because I don't love all Canadian fighters, don't get me wrong, but I don't think this was Barrow's best performance here.
It wasn't super. I mean, he was doing okay for the first couple of rounds, but as I said with Magomedov, the key for me for an elite fighter is if they actually get better in the later rounds, if they can turn it up and show that they still have plenty of cardio left in the tank and really go out there and go for the win in the later rounds. And that's what Barrow did, so you can say he's not the Barrow of old, but I thought he looked pretty darn good in getting the finish.
But will he ever go back to that level of elite fighter status? I mean, he was very dominant at one point.
Yeah, he was considered either pound for pound best or top 5 pound for pound best, but to be in that really truly elite class, you either got to win a title or be a number 1 contender, so it's up to him to establish that by going back in there with TJ Dillashaw and trying to get his title back.
Yeah. Main event time, go to Machida and CB Dollaway.
This was a wildly entertaining finish because holy cow did that kick kill CB Dollaway with death.
Machida wins 62 seconds in the very first round.
I swear it sounded like a freaking gunshot went off. It was like, bang! What did he do to him? Oh my god, he's doubled over. Oh my god, he's dead.
The man who kicked Randy Couture's head into retirement did it again.
Except
only
with
with
the
a lower
body kick, yeah. He broke every rib, I swear. I don't know how many were broken, but when I heard that crack, I was like, oh my god.
Yeah, they replayed the crap out of this with the sound to hear exactly that crack sound Stevie's talking about.
Yeah, it was a highlight reel finish for the end of 2014. I mean, you sneak this one in on the highlight reel at the last minute because it's worth it.
Someone said 2014 went out with a bang. I guess you can make that joke.
Yeah, man, that's the Machida can win a world title at any time because that's this, like you said, that's the kick that retired Randy Couture. That's the kick that put Rashad Evans to sleep. That's the kick that makes a champion a champion.
Now, did you know that CB Dollaway tied a record with this fight?
For what?
Oh, this is good. I don't recall the other 2 fighters that hold this dubious honor. CB Dollaway is the 3rd fighter in UFC history in a main event to land 0 strikes.
Ooh, not a good stat.
His only significant strike was a blocked kick he threw. Machida blocked it with ease, and that was the only real strike Dollaway had the entire fight, but it was he blocked it, so it doesn't count as a landed strike.
Right. Well, in a fight that only goes a minute and 2 seconds, you don't have a whole lot of opportunities to land a strike, especially.
Throw a punch.
Well, Machida is the kind of guy that's hard to hit in the first place, so.
It's not Anderson Silva.
Yeah, well, he kind of is for his weight class. I mean, they are both Brazilian. They are both very elusive.
Yeah, very elusive. I will say that. Are you surprised?
Karate. I'm not surprised at all. This is, like I said, this is the guy, when he fights like this, he wins titles.
Yeah, when he fights like this, it's back to when he was on top of his game as champion, man, it's just one of those things where you When it comes to Machida, like, how many fights do you think is left in that gas tank of his?
Based on this performance, quite a few.
No, the thing is, it's his return to the middleweight.
No, it's not his return. He fought middleweight when he fought Weidman in July. I was there.
Oh, right, he's been in middleweight for the last 4 fights now, because he fought Munoz and Musasi.
Yeah, and he had a heck of a fight against Weidman. I mean, Machida has arguably had one of the best 2014s of anybody.
Do you think we'll ever see Machida and Silva?
I would...
Talk about teammates.
I would guess not. I think they have too much respect for each other to do that.
Well, probably right.
Maybe if Weidman was the champ and Silva was the number 1 contender or vice versa, maybe.
Would you hold that fight in Brazil?
You'd have to. You'd have to get like a soccer stadium that could hold 100,000 because they'd fill it.
They'd fill it. Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely, for that one. But I love Herb
Just
Dean.
like if they ever do the Belfort fight, if he ever gets that title shot, they could fight a soccer stadium and fill it with 100,000 people.
I love Herb Dean's run in there. And he just basically, when he went down and Machida started ground and pounding, he's like, all right, that's it, over. Like,
well, yeah, there was no chance. Dollaway was covering up with both hands. He was in tremendous amounts of pain. He was not trying to fight back. He just wanted to crawl into a hole somewhere.
It's almost like the old Simpsons joke where, stop it, he's already dead.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I want to be perfectly clear about this. I enjoyed Machida kicking the shit out of him, but I also felt really bad for him too. Like, man, that is going to be brutal. Whatever he did to him, that's going to be a difficult recovery. It's the yin and yang of this sport. Like, you love to see a top highlight reel finish, but then you also feel for the fighter who got hit with it and the recovery that he's going to have.
It's like that Uriah Hall fight we talked about a couple weeks ago when it was celebration when he kicked that guy in the next week, and then the whole gym went silent. It's like, he's not really making that normal sound. Let's go to stretcher, and it wasn't cool. But
well, it's funny you mentioned Uriah Hall because I just talked about watching Machida fight Weidman on that same card. Uriah Hall had a fight where we're like, please God, finish the fight because your fucking toe is sticking out the wrong way. You'd forgotten about that, hadn't you?
I hate that. God damn it.
And it's like, man, if people thought Uriah Hall didn't have heart and he wasn't a top level fighter, after that fight, everybody changed their tune. They're like, Uriah Hall's the real deal. He fought for 3 rounds on that disgusting toe.
What, John Jones and Chael Sonnen?
Well, yeah, but that didn't go 3 rounds, so we never really found out how much heart it would have taken.
Well, I just find Rogan's reaction like, let's get a stool for Jones. Why? Oh, my toe.
Yeah, well, he probably didn't feel it until he looked at it. Then he's like, oh, shit.
Yeah. Dollaway, the news isn't looking too good for him. Apparently, he could be out 6 months.
Is that any surprise after the way he got kicked?
So there was no fight of the night bonus on this show.
Performance bonuses. 4, $50,000 each.
Machida, Barao, Silva, and Miranda.
And they all earned it. Oh, we didn't even talk about Vitor Miranda, did we?
I didn't see this fight, to be honest.
Oh, I saw it, so I'll tell you about it. Jake Collier was actually doing okay for himself. He was probably winning the round, and then with like 10 seconds left to go, Vitor Miranda just got up from a takedown or wherever he was on the ground or whatever it was at the time. He's like, you know what? I got 10 seconds left to try to turn this round around. And he throws this head kick out of nowhere and just creams Collier with it. It was, with a second left to go, it was waved off. It was like, wow.
Damn.
Yeah, go out of your way to pull this one up and watch it. Find it however you have to find it, because this one made, you know how I always say there's something each month on Fight Fast that makes it worth the $8? That was worth the $8. Seeing that head kick with 1 second left.
Yeah, just looking at the medical report here, and CB Dollaway, the line just says, suspended for 180 days or until released by doctor with an x-ray of the right rib.
Yeah, well, yeah. We can't say it any other way than we've already said it. We've said it a bunch of ways now. That broke some ribs. There was no doubt about it when you saw it or heard it.
There's 2 other people here with 180-day suspensions. One is a prelim, but the other one's Mike Rhodes.
Well, he did go to sleep. I
It
mean,
wasn't the sleep.
what
It
was it?
says suspended 180 day or until released by doctor with an x-ray of his right hand.
Okay, well, then
Huh.
let them do that. If he's got something fractured in his hand, then that's what they need to do.
I didn't see a hand injury though, but we'll see what happens. Just on other shows this past weekend, Titan FC out in Lowell, Massachusetts. Desmond Green beat Steven Styler to win the vacant featherweight title rather decisively, 48-45 across the board.
Well, that would probably be why Seiler got released.
Mm-hmm. And Rick Hahn beat Carlo Prater in the same main event, 30-27 across the board. Not a big surprise, Rick Hahn still has gas in the tank.
Nope, not at all. And I'm still kind of surprised Bellator cut him loose.
Yeah, a little bit, eh?
Yeah, absolutely.
But, it's one of those things where with so many cards, I don't know if we're going to have back in the day where we had like 10 cuts in one day or 12 cuts in one day. I don't think they're going to do any spring cleaning in the ranks of UFC.
Well, not in the middle of the winter.
Now, yeah, not in the middle of the winter, unless you're in Florida, because it's always warm over there in Florida.
Or Las Vegas.
Yeah, Vegas is nice this time of year here, too.
Yeah, actually it is.
You know what's funny? Just on a side note, we're not going to have snow. Well, we were going to have snow on the ground, but they're calling for rain in Ottawa for Christmas.
Yeah.
And a high of 7 on Christmas Day. That's not, thank you, global warming. Like, what the hell?
Please don't say things like that because, every time somebody says, thank you, global warming, because it's warmer than usual where they are.
Sarcastic by saying it, though.
Okay, well, a lot of people say it thinking they actually mean something. Oh, look, it's blah, 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 it's global warming. Well, you can't judge the temperature of the globe based on where you are. That's a completely ridiculous assertion. Global warming means the entire globe. It has nothing to do with where you live.
Mm-hmm. No, I was being facetious. I was being sarcastic. Like,
I understand, but a lot of people aren't when they say that.
No, unfortunately not. So I lost train of thought.
Yeah, apparently yes.
Did you have a problem with your broadcast of the show on Saturday for UFC?
Oh, hell yeah. They went black for about a minute, and then when they came back, they were replaying the CB Dollaway or TJ Dillashaw with the Henan Barrow fight, UFC 171.
173.
73, sorry. But yeah, it's like, what the fuck? Yeah, it's a TJ Dillashaw Henan Barrow fight, and it was a good fight, but why are we watching this instead of Henan Barrow and Mitch Gagnon? What's going on?
It only happened in the States and I guess North America, I guess. So I don't know who flipped the switch, but I was watching. I was like, okay, I've had a few beers. I will admit to that, but I don't think beer gives me this type of side effect where you're like,
Where you're suddenly watching a completely different show from 6 months ago.
How good is this beer?
It's a Time Warp beer.
Time Warp beer.
Let's do the Time Warp again.
I still say we should do Stevie J and R.D. Reynolds in a karaoke contest.
Hey, you get him to come here or I'll get it to go there if you buy me the ticket, but I'll do it.
Leona Machida thinks his next fight, someone suggests he should fight Luke Rockhold next, and Machida thinks that fight would be excellent.
I think that would be excellent too. Rockhold Machida, make it happen, Joe Silva.
UFC is kind of busy right now with the whole Rampage Jackson.
Oh yeah, that was the big news that broke during the show and was already hotly being discussed on Twitter long before it was ever announced by John Anik.
Yeah, we talked about this off air during the show, and it's one of those things where when it comes to Quentin Jackson making his return,
he's got every right to if he feels that Bellator didn't hold up their end of the contract.
There was a 45-day window. He was, I think he found a loophole in his Bellator contract, but Scott Coker has come out and says that he is still a Bellator fighter.
And Viacom's lawyers are going to vigorously enforce their contracts, quote unquote.
Yeah, so, a lot of lawyers are going to get rich off of this.
That's fine. If Dana White wants to play this game and Scott Coker wants to play it with him, then let him go take it up like a couple of rams in the woods butting heads, and we'll see which one prevails.
So the lesson here is the more popular you become, the more money you make, the more money you earn, the more lawsuits you're going to have.
Well, look at Randy Couture and all the lawsuits he and Dana White had with each other.
Well, I mean, I'm just looking at Dana White right now. He's got 2 lawsuits, including this one, and now there's a third one we'll talk about in a couple minutes. But Dana White's getting very sick as talking to his lawyers, I would assume by now.
Or I think Zuffa is in general. It's not really just him. It's Lorenzo Fertitta. It's everybody.
One little note, though, about Rampage Jackson coming back to UFC. He hasn't said one word to Dana White yet.
Well, did he really need to? I mean,
No.
Dana White wasn't the one who was going to handle the negotiations to bring him back, so you know they have a testy relationship at times.
Now, following his loss on Saturday's show, Antonio Carlos Jr., the winner of Tough Brazil, is going to middleweight.
It's really not a surprise because okay, look, here's the thing.
Here we go.
He fought Tough Brazil 3 at heavyweight just because he wanted to get on the show, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we understood that. So we thought, okay, he's coming down to light heavyweight. He'll be competitive. But he got taken down over and over and over again by Patrick Cummins to the point it was kind of humiliating to think this is an Ultimate Fighter winner and he can't hang with Patrick Cummins. So now he's probably thinking, okay, I fought at heavyweight to get on the show and I won. I fought at light heavyweight against a guy that's just up and coming and got blitzed.
Mm.
So maybe I should try middleweight. If I could make that cut, this might be a better fit for me.
So remind me again, how many UFC fights is he going to have now?
Well, that was his first official one outside of Ultimate Fighter Brazil.
Well, his finals fight's an official fight, isn't it?
That's what I meant.
And this fight he lost at was fight number 2.
Right.
So his next fight's fight number 3. It'll be his 3rd weight class in 3 fights.
That is correct, sir.
Yikes.
Well,
Good thing he's young. Good thing he's young, that's all I can say.
remember that one guy that we were talking about that fought GSP that's been in like 5 different weight classes?
Oh, yes. Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
It's not unprecedented.
Well, look at Kenny Florian.
Yeah, look at Kenny Florian. Hey, look at BJ Penn.
Yeah. World Series of Fighting news. They've added 2 fights to their next show next month. Brian Cobb and Johnny Nunez, and Casimir Mladenov against Jesse Taylor.
All right, JT Money in action again.
Mm-hmm. Now, well, we talked about Cruz with Rafael Assunção. You know, what kind of fight do you book for him next? I mean, it's a clean break of his ankle. Surgery's not required. You know he's going to be itching to go back to the gym, but he's going to be out until, mid-February, I would imagine, until he can really have a good training camp. Yeah, it's about 2 months, so we're looking at end of April, maybe May. So, I mean, Dillashaw, he fights Barao in a couple months, so maybe the winner of that fight gets Assunção? Or do you have Assunção? Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, you know what? It's interesting because of the fact that Assunção has a win over Dillashaw, and Dillashaw is the champion. So my feeling is if Barao beat Dillashaw and you wanted to set up the new number 1 contender, why not have Dillashaw rematch Assunção, see if you can get that win back?
But do you put Assunção off an injury in a quote-unquote number 1 contenders fight?
I think if he feels competitive and ready to go, you don't take anything away from him. I mean, it's not like he's suddenly not an elite fighter just because he got an injury. I mean, he's the number 4 bantamweight in the world, so I don't think that takes anything away from him, especially if he's only going to be out for 6 to 8 weeks.
Mm-hmm. Another sponsor is joining the ranks of the UFC. Multi-year, multi-million-dollar deal, Stevie. Monster Energy Drink.
All right, so Monster and Reebok are going to be the official sponsors of the top 15 in every weight class then.
And who's been a big sponsor of Monster in the past?
Remind me who?
Rampage.
Oh, of course.
So you gotta think maybe that has something to do with it.
Does this mean no more Nos Active? Nos Active?
I have no idea.
If so, I'm going to miss those GSP commercials.
Pat Healy is signed with Titan FC. He's going to fight for them in under Titan FC for his next fight. So that's an interesting turn for 2015.
Yeah, well, we'll look forward to Bam Bam coming back again.
Yeah, we talked about Steven Seiler. He lost that featherweight title fight. He'll be going to bantamweight. Now this story here, I've got a few thoughts on. TSN, RDS, and the Fight Network have joined forces to claim the rights to the UFC broadcasts in starting in 2015.
Yeah, basically taking it away from Sportsnet 360.
Well, Sportsnet, it was just on Sportsnet 360, but Sportsnet had the rights. And then when Sportsnet
didn't match the offer, they basically didn't bid high enough.
Yeah, well, the contract was up, and Rogers has a bunch of stuff on their plate right now with their NHL coverage, which is pretty darn good. So when the contract came up, it's like, well, we're going to pay you the same amount, or I'm not sure what the exact number was, and TSN's like, well, we'll pay you this. And it's like, done, we'll go to TSN. And you gotta think, with TSN, they have a pretty similar package now with the regional feeds. It's sort of like ESPN in the States, or
every time you see an article about TSN, it's always called the ESPN of Canada.
Yeah, well, ESPN actually has a 20% stake in TSN.
Well, that explains it then.
Yeah, there's
kind of interesting that Jay and Dan went to Fox Sports then.
Why is that?
Well, you would think they would have stayed in the ESPN family instead of going to the competition.
Well, sometimes it doesn't work that way. It's just one of those. It's not like bilateral moves where TSN goes to ESPN. It's just a lot of the ESPN docs end up on TSN. It's only 20%, but with the whole.
I know, but you would think that somebody in one of those two companies would have said, "Hey, these are our two most popular sports anchors. We don't want them to go with a channel that's going to directly compete with ESPN in the States." You'd think somebody would have made the executive call, offer these guys some more money, and get them to stay.
You listen to the Jay and Dan podcast?
I can't say frequent listener, but I think I've listened to it here and there.
Well, they're mentioning was Dan O'Toole. He went to college where I went to college, and they found a cache of his air checks when he was in college.
Mm-hmm.
And they're brutal.
Oh, he was really bad back then?
Oh yeah, they're laughing, like listening to him do a newscast and just breaking it down, just laughing, and he's like, I sound like that? Oh my god.
You know what I saw the other day, and this is going to be a completely random segue, but you brought up air checks and people embarrassing themselves back in the day. Mm-hmm. Did you ever see the origin of Boom Goes the Dynamite?
Yes.
Yeah, that is a hilarious video. That poor kid who was filling in for the sports reporter had no idea what he was doing. He's trying to come up with catchphrases, trying to be clever, and boom goes the dynamite. He had no idea how viral that would get.
Yeah, that definitely went viral. But to bring it full circle this week, Jay Onrait interviewed CM Punk and talked about his upcoming plans and what have you, and the videos are on YouTube. Go check that out. And CM Punk interview with Jay Onrait was pretty good.
Better than the one with Landsberg.
I was just about to say that. Better than the Michael Landsberg off the record.
Wow, Punk! You could tell Punk did not like Landsberg one bit.
No.
I was laughing my ass off. He's like, "You're a complete phony. You're acting like I'm gonna big time you off the air, and then you're being all friendly on the air. You're a complete tool."
Landsberg has a reputation. I mean, he's had wrestling fans on in the past. He, like Vince McMahon, Bret Hart, Stone Cold Steve Austin. During the interview with Austin years ago, basically, Landsberg was wearing under his shirt a Landsberg 316 shirt. Mm-hmm. And Austin just walked over, ripped the shirt off, and left.
I don't know what it is about Landsberg, but he seems to live for pissing off people. And if I was getting major interviews like that, I would not be going in there with the desire to piss these people off.
Yeah, I don't know how much longer Landsberg is going to be there. I'm sure he has his followers and what have you, but I cannot recall the last episode of Off the Record I watched, and that's been years.
Yeah, I guess Punk just felt obligated to go on there because Landsberg is one of the bigger names, and he's doing the media circuit right now for UFC. But at the same time, you can tell that there are some of these interviews that Punk is like, "Fuck you and your hat."
It'd be good to, yeah, pretty much have a chair.
Have several. Yeah.
I'm just really happy that the Fight Network is part of this deal. Our friend Robin Black and the guys out there, John Pollock, are definitely, licking their chops because this is going to be a great deal for them. They're recovering a lot of UFC stuff on the network, so
Yeah,
good deal for them as well.
Big shout out to John because he gave me the hookup on some contacts the other day, so I appreciate it, John. You're the man.
Now we go on to UFC lawsuit number 3. I don't know if this is the same one, but Dennis Hallman and Javier Vasquez have joined the class action lawsuit against
Javier
UFC.
Vasquez?
Yes, Javier Vasquez.
You know, this is another completely random segue, but I was listening to a rapper the other day named Toussaint Morrison, and the very first line of the song was, "I got rap on lock like Hicks and Gracie in the 80s.
Oh,
and,
no.
And I was thrilled when he said that. I'm like, this is a true head. This guy loves jiu-jitsu and MMA because he said, I got it on lock like Hicks and Gracie in the 80s. And you know he's a real head because he pronounced it Hickson, not Rickson. And you can always tell the difference between a guy who's trying to sound clever and a guy who actually knows what he's talking about by how they pronounce the R.
No, it is the same lawsuit that we talked about last week with Kung Lee, for example. So it is basically 2 more fighters. So it's 5 named fighters now that have joined this class action lawsuit.
Well, isn't Javi Vasquez better known as a coach and a trainer than a fighter these days? I can't remember the last time I saw Javi Vasquez fight, if ever.
He fought 6 times under Zuffa, under WEC, and he did fight once in the octagon, winning against Joe Stevenson at UFC on Versus 4.
Yeah, so not very often.
But it is a name hardcores would know. It is a name.
He's a big player when it comes to training and getting fighters ready for fights.
Now, the thing is, one big-time fighter was offered to join this lawsuit, which now stands at 5, and declined. It's a pretty big name, Stevie.
I know the story, but go ahead and tell our listeners.
Tito Ortiz.
Yeah. Well, people have always said that he has a testy relationship with UFC, but at the same time, I think he knows that his bread may be buttered on that other side if things don't work out for Bellator, so he may want to go back there again someday.
Yeah, I mean, he was interested, but basically feels that it would just best not to be a part of it. Mm-hmm. And,
playing his cards, he's just not willing to put them all on the table with this, and I don't blame him.
I wonder how many more fighters can join this lawsuit.
We'll see. We'll see how much traction it gets. When I listened to that conference call, and I probably said this last week, but they kept not making points. Like, they were being asked very pointed questions like, what do you hope to achieve? What's the ultimate goal? How many fighters do you think are going to join? What will this change about the sport? And every time they were asked a specific, they would say, well, that's too granular of a question. Is it really? Don't tell me it's granular. Tell me that you're actually going to win, that you've got a good lawsuit, and that you're going to take UFC for everything they have. Quit with the bullshit here. Quit with the lawyers speak and tell me that you got a game plan and you're going to go after them.
Well, the last news item I have here, Stevie, they're talking about the big show there, UFC Fight Night 59. It's now 12 fights, and the main card looks pretty darn good with Norman Park and Gleason Tebow, Uriah Hall against Costas Philippou, Eddie Alvarez and Benson Henderson, and the main event, Dennis Seaver against one of your favorites, Conor McGregor.
Yeah, it's a heck of a card for a free fight night, so nothing to complain about there, but still getting overshadowed by the January 3rd show and the end of January show. Between 2 major cards, it's not going to stand out compared to getting John Jones and Daniel Cormier, and then in the other one, Nick Diaz and Anderson Silva. So January 2015 is going to be a hot month.
Now, are you a big-time fighter by doing this, or are you just lame as hell by coming out to a Dropkick Murphys song for this show?
What's wrong with coming out to the Dropkick Murphys?
But if you're coming into it in a Boston show, if you're shipping off to Boston in Boston, are you just getting cheap heat or the cheap crowd pop?
I really don't care if you want to call it cheap pop or cheap heat or cheap whatever, because if it works, don't knock it. I mean, after all, we saw a guy come out to Real American, so.
That's true.
We saw a guy come out to Rocky, so.
Actually, that was cool. Hearing the Rocky theme song in the Brazil show was kind of nice. It wasn't the same as JDS's entrance there, but it was Eye of the Tiger. That's still a song that still gets you pumped up.
Yeah, well, the lyrics say it all, rising up to the challenge of our rivals. That's exactly what you do as a fighter. You rise up to the challenge.
When it comes to a Boston show, it's like, if you're going to do that, you come out in like a Red Sox jersey or a Celtics jersey. You know what I mean? You're really going to Boston it up, really Boston it up.
Well, it's not like fighters didn't come out wearing hockey jerseys in Vancouver for the UFC there, so.
Don't get me started with Florian. I remember I told you what Florian did at the weigh-ins.
Yes, I know. I remember.
Oh, very good. It still boils the blood.
Well, it's got to boil your blood like right now. It's the way the Maple Leafs are playing. Come on.
Don't start. All right. Enough hockey talk. All right, so that's the end of my news segment. Is there anything on your news list that I neglected to mention there, boss?
No, really nothing to add, so I'm just going to let you wrap it up with that.
All right, so tune in next week because we're going to preview the big January show coming up between Daniel Cormier and John Jones, and we're going to do the end-of-year awards, and it's going to be our 4-year anniversary show.
You know what? We should try to get Heidi Fang on sometime between now and then to talk about the fact that this fight is finally happening after she got winged in the head with a shoe.
You should have that, was it Mike Myers who throws a shoe?
Mm-hmm.
We should have her on. That'd be a great interview, but...
Well, I already had her on back when it happened, so this would be more like the follow-up. Like, now the fight's really going to happen after all this time.
But still, 4 years, Stevie. That's a pretty big accomplishment there.
You talk about it, and I agree that it is, and it's kind of cool that we've been doing it for that long, but I can't even think about it in those terms because I've been podcasting for almost a decade now, so for me, 4 years kind of seems short by comparison.
No, it's still quite the accomplishment. I'm going to pat myself on the back for that one, but...
and we couldn't have gotten here without some people that have helped us along the way, so we shout out all of our guests that have been on the show. We shout out former co-hosts, former people that were involved in the show as well. We want to thank each and every one of you for being contributors. Donald Hoover, Killy Kev, thanks to everybody.
Absolutely. Without the producers and the co-hosts, the guests, and of course the listeners, there wouldn't be a podcast.
Absolutely. Hey, if you're listening to this right now for your holiday season, thank you. We appreciate your support. We love the fact that there's an audience out there for Glove Up or Shut Up. We may not be the biggest, but we work darn hard to give you a good value.
Yeah, somebody asked me to compare it to the other podcasts. I just called it the little engine that could because we're still kicking.
Absolutely. We aren't the biggest, but, well, I wouldn't say we're the best either, but we love MMA, and we love talking to fighters, and we love giving you a show.
Absolutely. And speaking of shows, that's going to wrap up this one. For Stevie J, I'm Peter H., the Hardcore Canadian. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and we'll see you next week. And as I always say, never leave it to the judges. Good night, everybody.
Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night.
Ho, ho, ho.
Ho, ho, ho.